Can see this history.
Sorry.
Can everyone see this history of Simpson Housing Services slide?
Yes.
Thank you. Okay. So it's been a couple of years since we have been with you with the Whittier the housing committee. So I'm going to start from the beginning on this and just kind of bring us up to speed fairly quickly, which is to say that Simpson Housing Services came out of the Simpson United Methodist Church that was formerly located on the corner of 28th and 1st. In the winter of 1982, in our neighborhood, we were seeing increase in the number of people sleeping outside, basically. And there was a lot of things that was happening at that point in time. The final stroke of kind of serious gentrification and elimination of affordable housing of like uh, what we would now call naturally occurring affordable housing, cheap housing, even rooming houses. The last stage of that was the convention center after on the heels of a bunch of work on Hennepin Avenue that got rid of old housing, as well as Nicollet and Washington and that whole exchange up there. Anyway, so we had that going on. We had frankly, the crack epidemic was starting to have an effect. And then we had good old Ronald Reagan, who cut 80% out of the HUD budget that year. And I don't know very many businesses that could run well after having an 80% cut to their financing. And therefore, public housing was bleeding profusely. So the the church was one of 19 congregations that opened their doors that winter. That was the solution in Minneapolis. The community solution to homelessness was let's open up the churches, and that's what people wanted to do, and so that's where we got our start as an agency. Where things get interesting for that church is that right away, by the mid 80s, they were starting to ask some deeper questions about, okay, this is well and good that we've got folks spending the night here with us, but where do they go from here? And what's next? And so the while it was still just a congregational ministry, they also delved into some transitional housing work right away at that point, which was pretty early for that sort of work in this country around housing, and um, and soon enough, things got complicated from a financing perspective, and it was no longer viable to continue operating as a ministry of the church. So Simpson Housing Services was spun off as a 501c3 in the early 90s. About Simpson is that our legacy program is shelter, and it's really the one program that hasn't grown. We started the way we did in the church basement. We did have a second location that we operated for a while, where we had our shelter for female identifying guests at a different location, but ultimately they were merged together, and we've been operating a 70-bed shelter for 40 years. Primarily at that location. And meanwhile, the agency has grown leaps and bounds to the point where we now have about 600 units around the metro where we provide support services to formerly homeless families and individuals. What's interesting is that even though the shelter has continued at its same scale over the years, it is number one, continues to be a really vital place where we engage with folks who are experiencing homelessness and who are new to the experience, and therefore we can kind of begin that conversation about what does a pathway back to stable housing look like for you, and walk along that pathway with each of our guests. And it's also a place where we lead our community in terms of kind of the quality of service, the design of services, as well as we actually operate a call line where people call in and get assigned beds at all of the adult facilities in town. So there's about 900 shelter beds across Simpson, Agate, Our Savior's Community Housing, Salvation Army, and Catholic Charities, and all those beds are assigned each night by Simpson staff. So the as was the case has been the case with many churches over the years, that church was really kind of struggling financially, and the congregation was aging, and and they really had not found a way to kind of reinvent themselves as a Methodist congregation. And ultimately, they saw the writing on the wall, and in 2019, they gifted the building to Simpson Housing Services. So they saw that the end was on the horizon, and in order to preserve their legacy of social justice and community engagement at that corner, they saw that the best way to do that was to give the building to us and let us carry that forward. So our board of directors met, considered that question very carefully, and really did not want to let sort of real estate drive a program decision. So went through a period of discernment, and ultimately we decided that it was the best thing for the agency to take the building on, because we felt like there was an opportunity to develop a new model for shelter and really do something that was going to afford our shelter guests more dignity, that was going to yield better housing placement. Really, from my perspective, that's kind of the shelter on any given night really serves a dual purpose. One is just basic safety and getting folks indoors, and anything's better than being outside. And it's really that work of being the first step back to stable housing for many people in our community. Thousands in our community have been housed through our shelter and through similar shelters in Hennepin County over the years. So the board decided to take it on, and we began the work of design. And so we did some national research. We looked around the country to see what was going on, and we engaged with our shelter guests. We engaged with members of the community. We did some pretty deep early listening sessions with a lot of folks to try and figure out how best to do this. As we were beginning this work in 2018, 2019, we also we had the opportunity to operate what was called the Navigation Center, which was a very large temporary shelter that we ran over at the intersection of Franklin and Hiawatha, for primarily indigenous folks that had been unsheltered for a long time. And it really gave us an opportunity um, to experience what it was like to run in a 24/7 environment, to really to kind of sharpen our skills around operating shelter that is very low barrier in terms of being easy to access and not a lot of requirements to get in the door, and being really service rich, having a lot of services on site. And so that really became the driver for the shelter. A couple of other things about the shelter quick. I think I've got a nicer some nicer visuals here. Is that the shelter is what I love about this building is that the only thing in the basement is like mechanicals and storage and all the stuff that ought to be in a basement. Human beings don't have to sleep down there anymore. So all of the shelter spaces, all of the beds, sleeping rooms are above grade and have natural light, which is wonderful and healthy and the way it should be. We There's no bunks anymore, so no one's got to sleep on top of each other. So it's the sleeping spaces are set up where we've got about six or eight beds in each room. And the beautiful thing about that is that as the needs of our community change over time, the space can be flexed to accommodate those needs. So going into this, we're planning to operate like we do, essentially like we do now, which is roughly about 40 beds for guests who identify as male, about 30 guests for about 30 beds for guests that identify as female, with a couple of sleeping rooms set aside for non-binary shelter guests. And if it turns out more non-binary spaces, then we can just allocate those rooms appropriately for those guests. If it turns out over time that we need, God forbid, services that are targeting more older folks, we can set aside those rooms for those folks. So really, a much more dignified sleeping arrangement for our guests. And then, like I mentioned, lots of services on site. So we've got a partnership with healthcare at Hennepin County that is present on site with us. We've got medically assisted treatments for folks who are in need of that sort of response to our opiate epidemic. We have employers that are interested in working with us on site. We have the county doing benefits and doing enrollment and all sorts of programs. So really providing a space where those members of our community who are the most vulnerable are not find things and go be on their own during the course of the day. As I mentioned, we had a lot of different folks, some of the most important voices being those of our current guests who were involved in the design process. As we were doing design and moving into all the approval process, Whittier Alliance was one of our key partners in terms of positioning this with for zoning and permits. And we were really fortunate to have the support of the neighborhood organization. It's been terrific. It is very, very important to us to be a good neighbor. This is a vital community resource that we're operating in this building, and we always have done and continue to do so in a way that we feel and our neighbors tend to agree with us is with a shared value for living in healthy mixed income neighborhoods. And then lastly, I'm sorry, there above the shelter is 42 units of supportive housing. So these are what I refer to as sort of entry level apartments. So these are efficiencies, and they are targeting folks who are coming out of periods of homelessness. It's a great place for them for someone to be able to get their get their roots down, back into stable housing, get accustomed to what that's like again. We operate these sorts of units in other parts of the metro with other developers, and what we find is that as people get sort of climatized and comfortable back into their own place, they generally want to move on to something with less rules and less structure, and not having a front desk and all that kind of stuff. So it's really a natural progression for somebody to kind of get stably housed in one of these types of units and then move on to something that more fits their personal desires, both for the physical structure and geography. And we broke ground officially last week, and we are looking at 18-month construction period. So we are really excited to be ribbon cutting and doing hard hat tours and all of that kind of stuff as we go through construction, but ultimately start moving folks into the new facility in the fall of 25 is what we're looking at, probably fall, early winter of 2025. So that was a whole lot of talking and more that I would like to do, but I can't really see you all. So here we are. Hopefully somebody's got some questions or comments that we can stick around at this point, because I'm tired of hearing my own voice.
Thanks, Steve. Well, this is really great. It's great to see the update of where it's at. I just have a quick question. The design seemed to change from what the exterior, this is coming from my architecture side, but from what the exterior looked like at one point. Is that to bring it into budget currently, or what was the reasoning? Because I think it had more yellow into it, which represented like Simpson Housing and things like that. Can you just elaborate on why that happened and the process behind that?
Yeah, as a matter of fact, I've got one more cool image that I'll share as long as we're talking about it. So a couple of things happened to the design. As you surmised correctly, there was definitely a cost consideration. At one point, the building was going to be 5 stories and not 4. And so that's the primary change that was undertaken as a cost consideration. The other thing that happened is that there was a duplex that was next to the building, immediately to our north. Anyone who's really familiar, who's paying attention to the site, will have noticed that duplex was torn down as the first step of our construction process a couple weeks ago. And what that allowed us to do was to really simplify the design and make this so it's a longer building with more frontage on First Avenue, and bring and again supporting the height reduction, but it also opens up some more green space on the back of the building, where it was so the 3 major design changes were: it's shorter, it's more of an L shape than kind of a little bit of a U it was at one point that you might be thinking of with those earlier pictures, and we've got some more green space at the back of the building because of the added lot.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Yeah, no, good question.
Others have questions or comments?
In terms of timeline, is everything on track? Are you running into any issues with the city?
The city has been a wonderful partner to us on this. That they are absolutely not a factor. We had some struggles with the state, to be honest, in terms of funding that held us up from getting to closing and held up our construction a little bit. But at this point, everyone's going in everyone's rolling the same direction. There are no barriers that we anticipate at this point. Honestly, really, in the past 2 weeks, the only thing that we're seeing as far as the delay goes is rain. You can't do so much in a great big pit when you're getting a foot of rain in a week.
Sense.
But I do want to reiterate, the city has been a invaluable partner on this project. So the seeing what we have been directly involved with the city of Minneapolis in more ways around responses to homelessness and affordable housing in the course of the last 5 years than the city has ever done before that. It is community planning and economic development, the mayor's office, everybody is doing things different than they ever did back in 10 years ago. It is quite remarkable.
Good to hear.
Any other comments or questions on Zoom?
I just wanted to say thank you. Thanks for coming and presenting. And I feel so lucky that we're going to have this space in the neighborhood. It's just like really exciting to hear about kind of some of the thoughtfulness around some of the features that will be in the space and that went into planning it. So yeah, just wanted to say thank you, and that we're really excited for the space to be in existence.
Thank you, Anna. One thing, just from a neighborhood perspective, there was no sugarcoating the fact that old church was getting to be an eyesore, and there was no way to polish that thing up anymore. I've been really excited about just the physical presence of a new building at that corner for a long time. So thank you. I should also mention that our development partner on this project is Project for Pride in Living. Anyone who's familiar with that agency, they are near and dear to our hearts. I've always admired their work. This was a really an opportunity for PPL and Simpson to really dig in together on something. And both agencies were super excited to launch into partnership on this when we did a couple of years ago now.
Awesome. Well, thanks, Steve. Appreciate it. Truly, it's been great to hear the update on this, and we look forward to hearing more as this progresses even more into construction.
Yeah, and I know Elizabeth is connecting with staff, and we got some ideas about barbecues and, as I mentioned, hard hat tours and all that kind of stuff. So we really view, like I said, you were instrumental in the early stages of getting our approvals and all that kind of stuff. We really view you as a vital partner. So stay tuned. There'll be some more invitations coming for future events.
That's awesome. Thank you, Steve. Appreciate that.
Thank you. I'm going to jump off if that's okay.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Totally fine.
Just want to give you a quick history of the space. It's the space on West 28th Street, just as the last little parcel of Whittier as you're crossing over 35W. It was a staging area for MnDOT during their construction. And during the park board made a long-term plan for all the areas, and the Southwest area plan included the 28th Street as a DIY skate park, public arts, play area to keep the top lots themed, as well as a naturalized area. The DIY was called out in our skate park activity plan, which was passed in 2027. The skate communities always wanted to have a space where we could actually build our own skate park. So that was the intent to start with. And that's what kind of from there, I'll tell you kind of where it's led to at the current date. It was a staging area in 2021, still with MnDOT, and we started to have discussions with MPRB how we maybe carry this out. In 2022, the project manager was assigned land acquisition. Yeah, by the way, I should make that point. This land is actually owned by MnDOT, and even when it was a tot lot prior to the construction, it was a leased piece of property that MnDOT allowed the park board to maintain a playground. So now this is in the final stages now this year to actually acquiring the property from MnDOT. Final stages of that. 2023, we started community engagement. I think I was actually in this committee in July of 2023. I think George, you were here as well, with the project manager discussing kind of our intent of the project. It was as I mentioned, it was supposed to be a DIY, and unfortunately, City of Skate and the park board were not able to come to agreement on how we were going to accomplish a DIY. They basically would not allow us to allow volunteers to build and could not come to agreement. So they changed course with us and actually asked us to be a general contractor on it and prevailing wage and stuff. And at that point, we said what we'd like to do is proceed still to DIY spirit. The designer we had is Mark Gillespie. He's a local skater, actually a Whittier resident. He lives 2 blocks from the spot. He's been the designer all along and kind of the key lead person on the project. He's known in the skate community as the wizard, and he's known for his expertise in skate park design. So NPR continued on with their playground. We were kind of at the 2 stages at that point. We were playing the skate park. They were playing the playground in the entry plaza in 2023 and into 2024. In 2024, we partnered with California Skate Parks, who is the firm. They're world renowned. They're actually building the Olympic skate venues in Paris right now. They took Mark's work and started getting build documents. And that's kind of the stage we're at the moment. They're ready to go in the next few weeks here to the city planning department for a PDR review. And that's something we did at Elliott Park as well. And actually worked with California Skate Parks on that project as well. They were actually lead designer. Mark actually helped build the Elliott project, but he did not design Elliott. In the recent weeks, I don't know how familiar, I know Kaner was familiar with the park board, did not have the funds or chose not to use funds from their acquisition fund to purchase the land, but chose to go for park dedication funds. So good news and bad news there. It depleted the park dedication funds some. The good news is that MnDOT did lower their price to acquire the land down to $100,000. So that's good. But they also took some park dedication funds to complete the project. Originally, this space, because it was a leased piece of land, it was only allocated $200,000 in the CIP for this project, which is pretty minimal amount for what we're trying to accomplish here and how it has evolved now. It's really going to be a contracted built skate park in that DIY spirit. It changed obviously the cost of it and where we're going to go. So right now, phase 1, it looks like they're going to still need about $270,000 to complete the playground and the community areas. The skate parks are probably going to be in that range of $550,000. And the public art has not been planned. That was something we've tried to work on public art projects at the park board before, and it's difficult. I don't know if anybody's had the experience of trying to do public art, but we feel it'd be best left in somebody else's hands at this point. But another good story is that MnDOT did agree that the sound walls could be used for arts. It would be really, if you bend down that street, you know, if those walls kind of fall over on top of you, and I think they'll really be a cool backdrop to this park. Kind of be a shame if they somehow don't have public art or even greenery, or something other than just a plain wood wall. And I would love Whittier or another organization, Whittier, to maybe take that on. That would be a great project to kind of complete this park. But at this point, it's the playground and the skate park are kind of the main focus. So. The picture there, just to reference, the playground's in blue there. It's not exactly where we're at today. There's some real minor changes. The skate park has, closer to the street there is a snake run, which will be just for skaters. The other pathways meant for pedestrians. There's a peanut bowl, which is something that the skate park system in Minneapolis does not have anywhere. And then some the rounder figures, you see there's some transition features. And then there's a flat ground along the retaining walls, sound walls, but also we were able to get MnDOT to give us 15 feet there, which will be more street skate elements that are movable and changeable year to year that we'll be creative with to change things up from year to year. So that's kind of the plan. That's skate features. Let's go to the next one, Maggie. So right now, as it stands, if the purchase price stays at $100,000 and the park dedication funds that were used for the playground overruns or above budgets, the balances are currently standing at $158,000. The park dedication funds at the Sioux line that were allocated, I think 3 or 4 years, I believe, are sitting there unused at the moment. And then just to give a reference point, you know, just the 28th Street project, that park was in the equity scale. The park board was rated the #1 equity need in the city in 2018. And then there was a $200,000 budget put to it, which really wasn't going to accomplish much. And for reference, Clinton Field Park, which is just what 4 blocks to the north, their budget is up $1.35 million out of the CIP, and as well as the futsal group was able to get park dedication funds. I believe that came to your organization with that, and I was actually one that led them to you guys because we did the same process with the Elliott neighborhood. The Elliott Park had never been built without the support of Elliott neighborhood organization. And the Futsal Society had seen what we'd accomplished there. Kind of asked us, how did you do that? You know, we can't get any traction for a futsal court. So kind of laid them the roadmap that, you know, we might want to try this, you know. And again, Whittier is fortunate, like Elliott neighborhood, you have a plentiful park dedication funds. There's a lot of neighborhoods in the city that they rarely get above $10,000. So you do have a fund that's readily available at oftentimes. So really, yeah, if you look at the next screen there, well, we're really asking at this point to support the build. The park board at the moment is now that they've got the park dedication funds for the purchase and the overcost is the playground. Their intention is to build that playground this fall. That's really going to complicate the skate park build. That doesn't seem logical. We're literally weeks away from having a plan approval. We're trying to get them working with Commissioner Schaefer to maybe pump the brakes and did this project all at once for spring 2025. But it's really going to come down to the funding. And so far, we haven't been able to break through the park board as far as any funding source besides the park dedication funds. So we're asking your support. Just contact Commissioner Schaefer, any commissioners at large, project manager, Superintendent Van Gore, whoever at the park board, will let them know this is a priority for you. I think it would be a real shame if this park ends up being a phased project. I think it's going to complicate it. It's going to make it more expensive. I don't think it serves the community kind of having a half-done project at this point. Yeah, no, I appreciate your support. Love any questions, any feedback, where we're at.
Really great, thanks for sharing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I do remember when this came through, I thought it was both together at one point.
It started out
presented.
Yeah.
So it's unique to see things separate pathways. Okay, the best thing is to reach out to commissioners. I appreciate you guys.
Sure.
Yeah. Do you know the cost difference if it was 3 days?
I mean, they've asked us to do it, even like phase the skate park, like say let's do the skate park, and we haven't run up those estimates yet. We're hoping not have to do that to phase it all in, because it's just gonna be complicated. That playground is gives really limited access. We're probably gonna have to pump more concrete than actually bring concrete in. And again, I know concrete, people don't like to say we're pumping concrete, but really it's the only thing for skateboarding where it lasts, and it's really the preferred surface. And once it's built, it's a 20 or 30 year feature. So, I would say it probably for sure increase the cost 100,000 at least, just off the top of my head, with just the logistics.
Yeah.
And
I'm just curious.
Yeah.
Because it sounds like the city wants to move forward with part.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm not sure the reason, because the project's it just comes down to cost at this point. They didn't budget for it, haven't budgeted for it, they don't have the money.
And if they continue to wait on the playground, it's gonna cost more too. So eventually, yeah.
I would say 6 months on a playground's not gonna.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah. I'd say the wait on the skate park, if the skate park doesn't happen next year, it's also gonna. Yeah. It's kind of the same thing, So that's up to it. I mean, any support, whether it's some sort of amendment from land use, whether it's the general, the board itself, just citizens calling in yourself or writing in. I think, as I said, Commissioner Schaefer has been very supportive, and I think she'd welcome anybody else agreeing or saying it's a priority or would like to see it completed.
Yeah, if we are to, if housing and land use is going to support anything like that, we would have to.
Sure.
To talk about it and actually get a vote.
Yeah.
To see if we want to advocate for that, but also have to be a conversation with the board as we're talking about park dedication fees.
Yes.
And so we don't get a say really in park dedication fees. It goes back to the park board to make those recommendations. We can say what we want.
You can recommend.
We can recommend what we want.
Exactly. And I've been down this path before. I know we're with the Elliott. Again, it was told that's not a final say, but that's what made it happen. It was a community rallying behind it. I think the Futsal Society would say the same thing. If your organization wouldn't have been receptive to it, and instead of something you valued in your community, it wouldn't be an option.
Do you think it'd be good for you and Maggie, Anna, to sit down together and have a conversation about our next steps, and then go from there to see if we bring it back to housing and land use? I know, like, a question will come up is what happens to the sewer line, access,
Sure.
point, and where is that? No one really knows.
Nobody knows,
So
exactly.
it's the same situation.
I can give a brief update on that. I mean, so when the park board voted down the project, the funds effectively have expired. The federal funds have expired and the county, Midtown Community Works funds too are just sitting there. So the project can't move forward and the park board has said they don't want it going through to go. So that $370,000 from the park dedication fees is just sitting there and going unused. And that's why Elizabeth Schaefer is saying, look, there's a project that's shovel ready to go that the community wants. So it's a question of how much do we want the nudge, the park board then to say, hey, look, like, there's another thing that's right here.
Yeah, we have to see. Again, park dedication fees don't come right back all the time for us.
Sure.
Specifically, right now, we don't have to do development, so that's why I think the conversation about it would be great to see where's our highest and best use of our dollars. We can also buy some numbers, sure, but I do like the idea. Back, so
Sure.
I spend some time with you.
Yeah. Let me know dates and I meet this time.
I'll send you a follow-up.
Yeah, that'd be great. No, thanks for the time. I appreciate you.
Any other comments or questions?
I was listening here to get the update.
Yeah, no, that's great.
Having two kids that stayed in the neighborhood. And so it's cool to be able to go to Peter and Elliott, but it's nice to also have something with access in the neighborhood, so.
We hope to have you.
Especially a full,
Yeah.
Yeah. We look forward to you.
Thank you for saying that.
Yeah.
It will be unique. It's unique to the system, so it's.
Yeah,
we'll
I'm
go.
excited to love one as well as a skater myself. I
Yeah.
terrible, but
Yeah.
love to have a space.
Yeah. There'll be a little bit of everything. It's not very big, but we packed a lot in it, so.
I think it'd be a great addition to our neighborhood, but again, that's just my personal opinion.
I think so too. I think it's great. All right, so, thank you again. Appreciate your time.
Thanks, George.
Thanks for coming here.
Thanks, dude.
We'll have some more discussions about it. So thanks for coordinating this, Kedar.
Thanks.
So our last agenda item here, we will talk about one of our last agenda items is Grand Avenue construction update. If you're on, are you sharing screen? If you want to stop share so that they can share or.
Yep, we're on, and I believe Casey will be sharing his screen.
Awesome.
Perfect. Are you guys okay if we record the rest of this meeting with you guys?
Awesome.
Good.
Yeah,
Yep.
Yeah, we're okay with it.
perfect. Thank
So
you.
good evening. everyone. Thank you for having us on. My name is Abdullahi Abukar. I'm an engineer with the city of Minneapolis, working on the Grand Avenue project. I'm here with Trey and Casey, and there are consultants assisting the city on this project. I'll let Casey take it away from there.
Thank you, Abdullahi. So we kind of zoomed in on Street View a little bit. So this site location is just west of the one we were discussing a moment ago with the other group. This is Grand Avenue between West 28th Street and Lake Street. We are focusing that project on a small area, so just specifically with the bridge over the Midtown Greenway. Zoom in a little bit if there are some additional questions. So this project has come to the city through some federal grants to address the condition of the Grand Avenue Bridge, not dissimilar to a lot of other projects that are ongoing within the Greenway and have been ongoing throughout the corridor a little bit further to the east in prior years. Just a quick overview of the agenda and some of the topics we'll hit. As Abdullahi mentioned, he is the city project manager. My name is Casey Black. I'm with SRF Consulting Group and working as the consultant project manager for design on this project. And then Trey Joyner with TC2 is one of our many team partners on this who will be working specifically with the engagement components on different agencies and public outreach for the project. And we've got a few different phases of that which Trey will discuss in a little bit. Generally, the purpose and need of this is really to take care of the bridge itself. We're not looking at a full corridor project or improvement, but we know we've got deteriorating conditions on this bridge, which was constructed in 1914, as well as the rest of the corridor itself at that time. Since then, that use has been changed. We know how heavily used the Midtown Greenway is down below on what kind of resource that provides to the public. So one of the main goals is to maintain the ability to keep that open and safe for different versions of public transportation, whether it's pedestrians right now or bicyclists, or that future long-range plan that HECRA, Hennepin County Regional Railroad Authority, has for long-term visions. We know that bridge is in deteriorating shape. It's got a high maintenance cost right now. So we're really focusing in on the structural adequacy of that bridge to maintain a crossing at that location. And then again, just focusing on the safety of the greenway users down below, making sure there isn't falling concrete or other risk to any users on or below that structure. We've got some secondary needs too, and that is to kind of set this project up, depending on what type of project we move forward with, for future transit down the line. So Hennepin County Regional Railroad Authority did acquire that corridor for future transit improvements and do have some plans underway, or some studies that have been conducted to this point to help determine what options might be viable down there. And they try to maintain those plans. The city has partnered in some of that long-range planning, so it is a priority not just for HECRA, but for the city as well. As I mentioned, this is coming through a federal grant. About $6.3 million has been provided through that grant for addressing the construction phase of this. Right now, we're in the early phases of that design process, and we've got a few different phases as it's shown on the screen. We're right now in that rehabilitation study phase, which helps us set up the project for what we can and cannot do within that corridor. So since this bridge is part of a historic district, the Chicago, Milwaukee, and St. Paul Railroad Grade Separation Historic District, there are some limitations on what we can do with federal money within that corridor to any of its resources, and this bridge is a resource. So our first step is to really study, can we rehabilitate this bridge and keep it intact and safe as it is, or do we have to reconstruct all or a portion of that bridge? And that is a lengthy process, which requires FHWA's approval, and we are moving through that process right now. Once they determine whether we can rehabilitate this project or replace the bridge or any portion of it, that will help us identify what options we can really bring before the public. If we've got a rehabilitation project, our options are relatively limited. We're going to have to work with the bridge we've got and its kind of configurations for sidewalks and pedestrian accommodations. If we do have the opportunity to replace this bridge, it does open up some additional possibilities, which we would explore with the public in some future phases of design. So before we get into that preliminary and final design stage, we really have to work with FHWA to understand what we can do with this bridge with their funding. Conditions of the bridge, we'll just go over briefly. The site in general, it's a just a southbound corridor. We've got a single traffic lane. Parking is restricted on the bridge, although we do see parking frequently occur on the bridge. And then we've got sidewalks on either side. As properties adjacent to that site have been developed, there are 3 residential properties at the northeast, southeast, and southwest corners of the structure. And then we've got a commercial property to the northwest. As the developments on the south have been redeveloped for multi-use residents, there have been public walkways that have been brought into the development plans. So there is a connection at the top of the trench at the south side between Harriet and Grand Avenue, and then also a plaza that connects Grand Avenue over to Pleasant. What doesn't happen or isn't accommodated right now is a pedestrian crossing to kind of connect those. So that is part of the investigation we're doing off structure to see if we can potentially improve some of that crossing in that area. And again, how we set the bridge up, or what we're allowed to do with the bridge with FHWA, will help us identify what options we can implement off of the bridge. Right now, we've got a 30-foot roadway. Again, that's only facilitating a single southbound traffic lane, so it's quite wide. And then we've got narrower sidewalks than what would go in on the standard Minneapolis bridge if this was a new bridge. We've got 8-foot sidewalks. That condition is usually a 10-foot minimum. And then if there are bicycle facilities or off-street protected bikeways, those sizes can go up dramatically. Below the bridge, we've got both the pedestrian realm, and then Hennepin County does maintain an access road or a maintenance road down below within that center span. At this location, the pedestrians do separate from the bicycle path to get around one of the piers. So as we look at options, whether it's a rehabilitation project or a reconstruction project, one of our focuses down below is making sure that we can complete the project with as little disruption to pedestrian accommodations while the construction is active. There may be some areas or times where we've got to bring in detours or work around the construction, but the intent is really to do as much of the construction with safe conditions and maintain the greenway as best we can. If you've been under most of those bridges, they are in need of repairs and often are under repair. So they are inspected regularly, maintained regularly, but it is a large lift. This bridge specifically, we've got a lot of crack and delamination in the concrete parapets, some missing sections. If we look down below at the beams and the deck, a lot of delaminated concrete, again, exposed reinforcement, which has been corroding. Again, it's been in place now for 110 years. And then the piers, we've got some cracking, spalling, and delaminations. Some of that can be taken care of through routine maintenance, but that routine maintenance has to occur on a frequent basis because we can't quite set this bridge up without a much larger investment to really be durable for long periods of time. This project will also take a look at how we can set the bridge up to help accomplish the city's plans. And as we mentioned also, Hennepin County's long-range plans for transportation within the Midtown Greenway itself. So we'll focus on that. Again, if it's a rehabilitation project, we've got less ability to take a look at how to implement some of these. If it is a reconstruction project, then we've got some more flexibility. So that determination will come a bit down the line. And this is just kind of a list of some of the planning studies and initiatives that are partnerships between Hennepin County, Met Council, and the city for that transit. Trey, I can turn it over to you if you want to speak a moment on the public engagement this project will implement.
For sure, yeah. And just for context, I live in the Lindy building, so I'm a Whittier neighborhood resident. Know the area pretty intimately. I've been here for 3 or 4 years now, and so I'm really excited to, really think about how this project can complement the safe access and accessibility of modal users on top and below the bridge. So just kind of thinking about the public engagement for this project. As Casey mentioned, phase 1 is kind of elongated. It's kind of waiting on that determination that's coming through Federal Highway to determine whether or not it's a rehabilitation project or a reconstruction project or / replacement project. What we're doing right now is exactly where we're supposed to be, kind of engaging and informing residents about the impending or upcoming work on the bridge. And as soon as we come to a point where we have a determination on whether or not it is a replacement project or a rehabilitation project, that's when we'll come back out to property owners and just kind of local residents to engage them further on potential changes to the bridge. One of the things that we've already done is we've consulted with property owners at the 4 corners of the bridge that Casey pointed out. So we've met with the storage facility in the northwest corner, and of course, Lindy residents here at my apartment, and then 2 other locations on the northeast and north and southeast portions of the bridge. Once we know what the context of the project is, we'll go on to phase 2, where we'll show outcomes of what we heard during phase 1, and then solicit input on potential changes potential changes or upcoming work on the bridge. And then we'd go into phase 3 where we report back on phase 1 and then kind of further nail down what those options will be for the bridge and what the impacts or opportunities will be.
Great, thank you, Trey. And maybe before going to next steps, we can take a look at just the context of the area one more time. And the project is aware that there is a lot going on in the next few years, specifically around the Midtown Greenway area, the old Kmart site, and development from 35W West. First Avenue is under construction right now. There are plans to advance Nicollet Avenue, and Pillsbury's got a separate project also. So this being on the very west end of that, there's a lot going on in the next few years within a 6-block location along that corridor. So very busy. But Abdullahi and other city project managers are helping keep us all the projects synced so we understand when people will be active. And I think with our future engagements, we'll also try to bring some information related to those projects so the public understands that we really see the big picture here and want to minimize disruption as best as we can. Although, this is one of many projects that impact to the public is going to be felt for a long time, and they may have a hard time determining, which project is which. They'll just feel impact until all the work is complete. So something we want to be sensitive of as we hear from residents in future design phases. Otherwise, just returning back to the presentation, our next steps are really to try and wrap up this rehabilitation study this summer. It may trickle into fall a little bit. Some of the schedule we can't quite control just due to the reviews that have to go on with FHWA. Once we come out of that, though, we do want to come back out to the public and have more of a dialogue on what the project type is. If it is a rehabilitation, what are the limitations we've got within the project? And if it is a reconstruction project, then bring forward some of those best ideas we've got to implement long-range city plans and get input from the public on that implementation. And then we'd advance into that preliminary design and final down the road. Ultimately, if we can maintain the schedule with FHWA, this project is looking to be in construction in spring of 2026. And with that, I can turn it back to Abdullahi or Trey, or open it up to questions.
Yeah, thank you, Casey. Nothing further to add. We'll stand for questions now.
Anybody have any comments or questions?
No, I just think it would be good to get continued updates. I know that Pillsbury in particular is slated, I think, for like a reconstruction or a construction. And the area does get very congested and there are limited ways in and out. So yes, any assistance that you can provide in coordinating those efforts, really appreciated, and continued updates.
And we'll try to stay plugged into quite a few different networks. The Greenway Coalition is one resource that will help us kind of disseminate information to Greenway users particularly. We do want to stay plugged in with the Whittier Alliance, and also Hennepin County maintains a Greenways Bridges project. And this project does have a site on Minneapolis's projects page where the public can go to. And there is a one-page informational on there that does have some overview. So we've got a few different methods that we will use to try to communicate information to the public. And we will keep those updated through our design development phases.
Yeah, I think, Casey, we'll be happy to have you back here probably in the future as you start to figure out your next steps for rebuilding or rehabilitation of the bridge. And then that will be a good way of also letting the community member know of where the project was at. But yeah, making sure that it doesn't create too many traffic jams around here as everything is closed. So
yes.
I have one question. So given that Grand is going to be a low stress bike connector pathway, if the bridge is rebuilt, could you build a bike ramp on the northwest corner to the Greenway?
they don't own the there, but they could be looked at.
So can you repeat that? You said the northwest corner of Grand?
Yeah, so the Grand is going to be a low stress bike connectivity path. So you build access to the Greenway via a ramp on the northwest side.
Currently, that is not a part of our scope and was not part of our planning. Yeah, it would require a little bit of extra, looking into some of the, because right now we don't know who owns that land. It could be Hennepin County, it could be the city's land, or it also could be private property. Right now, our focus is only on the bridge, and I don't anticipate a a trail or a extension that connects from the Grand Avenue on the top down to Midtown Greenway. We are working on one for Nicollet and improving that one, but we don't have a plan to do that here.
And I'll just say on slide 8, if you can go to that, Casey, the city of Minneapolis and their AAA bicycle plan as part of the Transportation Action Plan has planned a bicycle connection north of Grand that complements the Grand Avenue reconstruction that occurred 2 years ago that connects up to 28th through the Whittier School. So as far as long-range planning, there hasn't been a planned connection down to the Greenway, but there has been a planned connection up to 26th and 28th.
Yeah, it seems like a good opportunity if you have to rebuild the bridge, because that's probably ICRA land at the northwest corner of the bridge.
Yeah, and it's probably a bit beyond the scope of this project and what FHWA would allow with the monies, but future projects always have potential if funding was there and there was ability to do so. But yeah, as Abdullahi mentioned, it's not anticipated with this effort.
It's unfortunate though, because long range plans should have had something like that in there, but it didn't. So now it's like, we gotta go back and look at the next time they're gonna do long range plans and have that set in stone beforehand, because then you would have the money to do that. Now it's like too late because the plans are created, which is very unfortunate. Any other questions or comments? All right. Well, thank you all. Thanks for the presentation on this and giving some update on Grand Ave. And we look forward to having you guys back here sometime in the future as your plans progress.